congratulate you and commend you on your bold initiative to improve the lives of the women.
It's good to see you again on Women, Power and Politics on the Joy News channel. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and my aim is simply to shine light on the women stepping into the arenas of power, bringing you exclusive insights into their personal lives, their career trajectory, the obstacles they overcome and how they overcome them, as well as the nitty-gritty of their crucial roles in the various sectors. Today, we have a special guest on the episode, a conversation with the former Transport Minister, Special Aide to former President John Dramani Mahama, and now the spokesperson for the campaign. I must add that she is the first female to be the spokesperson for the campaign for a major political party in the country. You know who I'm already talking about. My guest is, on this episode is Madam Joyce Bawah Mogtari. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much, and that's my very singular privilege to say a very big thank you to you, and to apologize also that it's taken us so long to make it happen, and then to just say that I am actually the former Deputy Transport Minister.
Right.
And I'm also special aide and spokesperson for John Mahama first and foremost, and secondly for the campaign from 2016, and then of course this one also in 2024. But also to say that the NDC in particular has had one other female spokesperson before me, yes, and that was Madam Hannah Tete. I actually took over from Hannah Tete in the periods of, I think, between 2012 and 2016. Okay. And I must confess that she was a fantastic individual to learn from, to understudy, and yes, to succeed. And I am always enormously proud of the support and guidance that she continues to give me. So I think it is actually a very humbling experience, if I can put it that way. Yes.
Let's start the conversation from there then. Was she one of the women you looked up to? I mean, we want to unravel you first, your journey as an individual, and then we'll go to your role as the spokesperson for the campaign.
Well, you know, I would say that all these conversations, I always say there's a very huge factor of faith. There's an even bigger factor of what God has in store for all of us.
Right.
But I must also confess that coming from a very strongly female background, I think that may have been my biggest motivation. And so I think that every other female that I have met who has mentored me, who has supported me, who has encouraged me on my journey, whether young or old, boss or other, I think that all of that, I would say, started off from my own home.
Right.
Where my mother herself must have been, a pseudo-modern feminist of sorts, maybe not cast in our mold as we are now, but I think for her day and for her time, she must continue to be my very best example of just what female leadership ought to be and what it should look like, and why many other females should be allowed also to lead.
We are hoping to encourage a broader, participation of women with this conversation.
Absolutely.
So what motivated you then to enter politics? When they talk about you, they talk about you as one of the leading female politicians in the country. You have a fantastic track record. What really motivated you to enter this male-dominated space?
You know, I would say that my biggest motivation is also because I've always been very public-spirited. I have a very strong passion for wanting to do things and doing them differently. I also love to be an example, because remember that politics is one space that most people, especially career women, I mean, you have a great career, you're doing very well, you're traveling the world, you are working with the very best minds, you mingle with just about the best.
Right.
People will then ask you, why would I want to leave all of that and come into politics? But you see, I remember from the very earliest years of my life, my father was actively very political. I had many other great individuals who were actually very political. I think that it was natural only that I would want to, at some point, engage in a certain kind of politics. Maybe I didn't know what kind. I believe strongly that that appointment that brought me all the way from Point Noah back to Ghana to take up this public appointment, yes, as a Deputy Transport Minister may have in many parts reoriented me in a certain way, probably reignited my passion for this very public space. But I think I also already have a certain persona, and I think that also has enormously created this aura or impression about me as a very healthy or positive example of women in politics. Indeed, these days even I call myself an ambassador for all women in politics.
And rightly so.
I walk in a way that I expect that others will walk. I try as much as possible to emulate my boss, and I take his qualities as qualities that are actually very enduring: to be respectful, to be less acrimonious, to be largely very kind-hearted, tolerant, and apart from that, to be the example that I think that many people would want to associate with or even to relate with. So I think you must make a conscious effort beyond what motivates you. You also have to live that motivation. And so I think I try very, very hard not to let down anybody who has had any form of, influence on my life, faith in me, giving me a platform or an opportunity. I think I take that very, very seriously.
You sound very intentional about your life. Like you don't have the liberty to just live anyhow. Every day, every 24 hours, and we'll get to 24-hour economy. Every 24 hours that God grants us to have, we have a plan for it, and it's always towards a bigger picture. So then that brings me to the question, would that be an approach that you use to thrive in this male-dominated field?
Oh yes, I think that for everything that you do in this life, you have to have a plan. You also have to be very intentional about exactly how you want to be perceived. You hear a lot of our leaders talk about, oh, my legacy, my legacy.
Yeah.
You see, even if you find yourself in a little corner, it should matter to you how well you've kept that corner, how effective you've managed that corner, how you've made it possible for others even to join you in that corner. So I work very hard on my sense of discipline, and I never, joke with my sense of discipline. I'm also very intentional about the things that I consider as important.
Yeah.
And then I'm also deliberate about the fact that you're also an example for many people. But I think the first example you are for yourself is really the example that you are to your immediate family, your siblings in particular, because that is your first demographic. So whoever you are, however you are, good or bad, your immediate demographic is your immediate family.
They're your first audience, your first cheerleaders, absolutely. And all of that.
And they're also your very first sense of any form of a mirror of yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think that I always give enormous, respect to my family first and foremost, my siblings, my parents.
How many siblings are you?
Oh, I come from a very large family.
How large?
So my father actually, I would say, has 6 kids. 5 of us girls, and then we have 1 brother. So that should tell you that I come from a strongly powerful female-oriented background, yes. And so I take being female very seriously. I'm also one of the advocates, so, I come from the school of thought that believes strongly that girl or boy really makes not much of a difference. It just depends on how you actually manage your life, really. So I think that is how we're raised, And my father probably never missed not having older boys. No, I think he believed strongly that the girls were just as good or better. And then I think our brother is all that he is because we've actually been very good examples also to him. Yes.
Does that mean that, well, I am also a woman, trying to climb the ladder in this space, and I face challenges that the society already creates, the patriarchy. We come from a traditionally patriarchal system. Do you have any instances where that has been a challenge, and how did you navigate that?
Well, look, sweetie, you know that these ones are things that will probably be with us for a very long time, and I always say to myself that I look at my mom's life, and if she could do it at the time when she did, then we have no excuse. And I remember my mom telling me a story about when she first qualified to go to secondary school. You know why she was disqualified from going to the school of her choice?
Why?
It was because she was too well developed.
Too well
and
developed?
They were not sure that she'll be able to finish school because somebody might want to marry her even before school is over.
And that was a reason for them to disqualify her?
Absolutely. And
wow.
in fact, her own family even agreed, yes. And yet my mom's father was a colonial magistrate. So she probably was even a very lucky northern woman. So I think that
that's a lot of inspiration from
exactly.
there. Yeah.
So we are largely daughters of history. And I think we don't have to feel that history on whose shoulders we stand. So irrespective, you hear all sorts of stereotypical conversations about women being their own enemies and women not liking one another. But you know, I probably in all my life have only ever experienced that typically once.
Okay.
Yes. And it's a story I probably never tire of telling.
Do share.
Because at some point I had a female, you know, very distinguished leader. And that was one job opportunity I took almost as if a man had met me and fallen in love with me. Pardon my example.
Okay, yeah.
But the minute I took the job, within this, by the time I settled in, it was almost as if my boss had completely regretted bringing me on board.
Wow.
Yes.
And your boss was a woman?
That was the only time I have experienced this.
Oh.
It was the only time.
What do you think was the reason behind that?
I would not want to try to find out what the reasons are or where. But it got so bad that I think eventually even she actually left the job. But I say this because I then ask myself, does it then mean that I wouldn't want to work under another woman?
Yeah.
No. I've subsequently had other female bosses, and it was completely different. Largely because I tried very hard to disabuse my mind of this notion.
I like that word,
Yes.
disabuse your mind.
Disabuse your mind. Largely, because you see, half of it will also come from you. I also tried very hard not to be the woman who would have to interview, say, 12 people, and maybe 2 of them are female. And then I think, okay, be careful you don't bring this other female on board just in case. I worked also very hard not to be that type of female. You know how I know that that thinking has actually shaped the way I relate to a lot of females?
Tell me.
So I meet a lot of you in the media space in particular.
Yeah.
Sometimes I meet some that I've never heard about or they've never heard about me. We've probably never encountered each other. You'll find that we meet just once. And the next time, the same person is reaching out suddenly all the time, either wanting you to be part of something they're doing,
Sure.
inviting you to witness their marriage, for one reason or the other.
True.
But I asked myself, there are many of us in the system. You must be doing something right.
Yeah.
And so I take that as credit to the thinking that I developed many, many years ago. And I've watched how it's played out over the years.
I've actually experienced you on that level.
Wow.
The first time we had a conversation on AM Exclusive,
Yes,
I don't know
yes,
if you
recall.
remember.
I
After the
remember.
interview, you
yeah,
said...
because I'd never even met you before.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you
I
were
didn't
full
even
of...
know about the program.
It was
like
very
that.
warm,
Yes,
and you
yes.
said I was doing well,
Yeah.
and my aura
Yes,
was
yes,
good, and I was
recall.
like, oh, wow.
Yes, yes, I remember, yes. Now
Yeah,
that you
so,
mention,
yes.
I remember, yes.
That's
yes,
true.
yes, yes.
Well, thank you for doing it
Thank you,
right and
thank you.
setting the example for the rest of us to follow.
Well, I won't call it that it's perfect, but I
Yeah.
make a very conscious effort
Yeah.
not to be the one that makes any other female or sister feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I pretty much treat any female the way I would my own sisters.
True.
And so I think that it's very important that all of us make this conscious effort, no matter what happens. And yes.
The world is big for all of us to thrive without the unnecessary competition.
But how do you convince the world that indeed there's room for everybody? It's like me working for Mr. Mahama and thinking that everybody appreciates that there's enough room for all of us. But there is.
There is.
And you ought to act it. And you ought to give it vent by being the example that allows for everybody else to participate in any way that they choose to do so. And I
True.
think there is nothing like a stereotypical woman.
No.
There's really
There's
nothing like that. It's just one of those things, a phantom that is created just to create a certain impression and
two
allow
women are
us
the
to
same.
spend all our time competing and not
Over
focusing-
unnecessary things.
Exactly. you know, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So looking back on your trajectory, career, individual, what would you say is your most proudest achievement as we speak?
Maybe I'd quote my late father,
Okay.
was becoming the lawyer that he always wanted me to become.
Okay.
Yes, I think that must have been my proudest moment, you know, to finally achieve this dream that I'd always imagined, that I'd always dreamed of, to achieve a very versatile profession that I think has made me stand out in so many more ways than I probably would have imagined. I think the beauty about the law quintessentially is that it literally opens up also doors to you. You know, it allows you to gather knowledge like you've never imagined. It teaches you a lot about discipline. It teaches you a lot about how, you know, because it's such a versatile profession, there's so much more you can do. And I watch how, even across the world, for example, it has become one of the most sought after professions anywhere in the world. It's a great fraternity. But you see, in as many of us as are literally called, not many of us will make it through that door of greatness.
True.
So if you manage to navigate it in a way that becomes a refreshing example for even others, why not?
Do you still practice? And does it give you an edge over maybe other politicians, or does it give you any advantage in your current role as a politician, the law background?
I think I'll say that I'm so far probably one of the few
who
has spoken all these years and yet to receive a notice giving me 8 days to retract or apologize. Because like I say, I know just how to navigate the terrain.
Yeah.
I figure what the Criminal Act tells you to or not to do. I know just when I'm about to cross the line and when I know that, okay, there's time for you to take this one back or literally swallow your words.
And you're disciplined enough to
pull
the brakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that of all of us, I mean, I've heard about all the troubles with Sami Jemfi, with Sam George, with just about all of us in the space, you know. So I think that maybe the legal background allows you to know just how to navigate the space and navigate it so well. Yes, because of course also I have many other examples of other lawyers like Hannah herself, Mahama Ayarga, who was my classmate. And I say all the time that most of my immediate interest in politics of the NDC was actually born by Mahama Ayarga, because we were on campus when he started to chase his ambition to become an MP for Bawku Central. And so a few weeks ago, we were in the Upper East region together, and I said, you know, I have a sister who is very active on the NPP side. And people had always misunderstood and probably thought that maybe somehow I've never ever played any politics until I arrived on the scene of the NDC.
Okay.
And I believe that my longest conversations about my modern politics would be my conversations with Mahama Ayarga and of course his campaign in Bawku Central, for example. So I think that I always give him enormous credit for encouraging me then to even appear as a communications person for the NDC on radio, on TV, and all of that. And this was as far back as late 90s when we were all students. So I think that in the recent years...
I wasn't born then.
Exactly. So you see,
but yeah.
But just imagine. So that should tell you something. So I finished law school, I think, in 1999, 2000.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I was born.
So,
yeah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, political actors are not spared criticism, and most of the time it's not pleasant. What would you say your biggest criticism has been so far in this career path?
Oh, it's all sorts of things.
I mean, you speak well, you've never offended anyone and said anything that you need to retract, but what is that thing?
Just the fact that you even speak well can be reason enough.
To be criticized,
Excellent.
Huh?
Or just the fact that you even market something so well can be reason enough. Or just because it is you that says it a certain way can be reason enough. So people don't need a lot of reasons.
True.
Even by being good at what you do. So yours is just to learn how to absorb all of it, be very positive about it. It will happen, but when it happens, know how you also manage it. You know, when I first started to work very closely with Mr. Mahama, I think naturally I was very sensitive to a lot of the screaming headlines in particular. And I had not also honed my skills with what to say or how to say it. I probably hadn't developed this level of tact. That took a while. And so you'd see a screaming headline and you'd be miserable probably for like the next 5-6 days.
Yep.
It will take you a very long time to recover. Or when those screaming headlines come and then you think this is not exactly what she said. So you're trying to
defend it.
Good, exactly. So you grow with the pages as you go along. And of course, unless you are one of those that probably just has no way of learning to do things differently, you learn also on the job. But you see, I must confess that Mr. Mahama was one of the biggest influences as I assumed this role.
Okay.
You'll be surprised that you see the screaming headline and you'd walk in and look very closely in my eyes, because he knew then how sensitive I was and how it gets to you and how it can even spoil my whole day, sometimes my whole week.
The whole week?
Oh, yes.
So then would it be an overstatement to say that that's one of the reasons why women fear this field, politics, because they do not want to be a subject of ridicule, they do not want the insults, they don't want to lose sleep because someone just misunderstood something they said.
It's not just women. It is with men as well. It's with all human beings. You know, a few weeks ago, I'm walking into a room and I meet a whole bunch of men. I didn't even know exactly who they were. Oh, you know, we like you because of the way you dress for the campaign. You know, the women must stop wanting to wear slit and kaba all the time for these. And I'm thinking, so in my mind, I'm looking at him askance, and he's going on and on and on. The old me would have said, but it's absolutely not your business. But you know, the new me will just smile and just walk along. The best part is that I wouldn't even stand and engage you. Because why? If I choose to wear, excuse my French, whatever I choose to wear to go for whatever purpose, what is your business? But you will get that. Remember one time a member of parliament coming to tell me why I shouldn't be wearing a skirt suit to parliament. Or you should make some kente stuff and wear them whenever you are coming to parliament. Oh yes. You will become everybody's property.
And they will not spare you the opinion on how you should live your life.
They tell you all the time.
Ah, well.
You know, I learned how not to wear my everyday kind of lovely suits that I used to love when I came into this space. Because one time we had a program, and I think for some reason it was live, and the camera was literally on my legs the whole time. I got more than 60 phone calls that day.
Okay.
People do all the time.
Yeah.
But you see, I take most of it in good faith. If people don't care, they probably wouldn't bother. But there's some of it that...
It will definitely get to you.
Exactly.
Do you think that women then have I don't want to use the word lesser, do you think men have more bandwidth to deal with it compared to women?
No, I think
because if you say it's all everyone.
In that sense, we all probably have different tolerance levels.
Okay.
But just look at what is happening in the US example with Kamala Harris and the whole campaign. Do you think that if Biden had handed over to a male counterpart, the subtle scrutiny as you see it, it would probably be different. It's the same with all of us, but remember that our society is not even as sophisticated.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to meet you and try to tell you, a young lawyer, why you ought not to wear a trouser suit or a skirt suit, know that it probably will not be as subtle. You understand? Yeah. They will say it almost as if they were judging you and trying to tell you how to live your life. So you need to be very controlled and to hold your emotions very, very carefully. Don't forget that you will get criticism from any source, even people you work with very closely. There's all that jostling, even in the political environment, maybe more of it even in our spaces. But like I said, you ought also to learn how to rein in your emotions. You need also a lot of grace. You also must work on your attitude. You know something about me? I am very flippant.
Okay. Okay, I want you to hold on to that a second. We will take a quick break, and when we return, the conversation will continue. It's still women, power, and politics. Don't go away.
I congratulate you and commend you on your bold initiative to improve the lives of the women.
Thank you for staying with us. I'm chatting with the spokesperson for former president and flag bearer of the NDC, Madam Joyce Bawah Mogtari, and she's just given an insight into who she is, her thought processes, and how she navigates this space. You were saying you were very flippant.
Yes, very flippant. You know, like someone, but you know, easy. But you know, in our professional spaces, it's very normal So I'm walking through the office with my probably junior lawyers or junior colleagues at work, and there's something to be done and it's not properly done. Or like how I used to tell them, look, only those of you with first-class degrees should help my son with his homework because I want him to do it and do it very, very well. And it'll be normal.
Did you really say that?
Oh, I'll say that all the time.
Okay.
Yes, and you know, and I'll insist.
Okay. But you know, a degree doesn't really, you know, it's not a measure of intelligence.
Oh, never mind. My son was just 4.
Okay.
And I was their boss. So it was actually in their interest
Okay.
that only the brightest ones should help him with his homework.
Okay.
But they would take it in very good faith. And they would actually fall over themselves even to do it. But you try that as a joke in this space.
Yeah.
So the environments are completely different. The dynamics are also very different. And you know, I always say that in all humility, thank God that you are also very bright. You know, when I hear people sometimes talk about maybe having acquired a master's degree at this or that, I go, okay. You know, but the best part is that you have all of that and more.
Yeah.
But you also still have the humility to continue to learn new things all the time. And so it is also in your attitude as a person, so that you don't take too much to heart, or you are able to shake it off very quickly, or you are able to imbibe it in ways that most people are unable to. But I now understand even more why so many women, if you're already on a certain career trajectory, you're doing very, very well. Colleagues of mine that I left in my former institution are now big women in the institution, doing very well.
Yeah.
So you come into this space, if you're not careful even, a lot is taken away from you.
Yeah.
Even in some contexts, an attempt even to belittle what contribution it is that you offer.
Just because you're a woman.
Just because. It's everywhere.
I haven't been able to get personal with you yet. So how would you describe Joyce Bawah Mogtari to someone who didn't know you? And then we'll get into the NDC campaign.
Oh, JB. JB is smart,
JB.
she's sassy, dynamic, charismatic, hardworking, loyal to a core. But the best part about me is that I have a great attitude and I believe in discipline. And I think anybody who knows me will tell you the same thing. And everywhere that I have worked, you will miss me. Yes.
Is this your own inference, or is this feedback from the people who worked for you?
Anybody.
With you?
Young, old, middle level, everybody.
Okay.
I have a great work ethic.
Okay.
And no matter the downsides, the negativity, whatever is associated with it, I am one of those who always remains very positive.
Okay.
Yes.
On that positive note, let's pivot to politics. You are the spokesperson for the campaign. Before we get into dissecting, you know, the criticisms and the issues that, you know, the campaign messages are addressing, what would you say is a unique selling proposition of the NDC ahead of December 2024 elections?
You know, I think that the NDC presently is actually one of the strongest political brands we have in Ghana. I might even be a bit, you know, bold and say that it is probably across Africa, really. You know, the thing about the NDC is that it's a very diverse Congress, a very inclusive Congress. It is not a perfect association, but it's also very all-encompassing. And so it radiates enormous positivity. I think in the last 8 years, we've achieved something that even our fiercest critics never anticipated. So I never underestimate the intentional effort that has gone into making our party the attractive political party that it is today. It is actually with a lot of humility to the fact that, look, at some point in time, we are some of the very best professionals in our midst.
Okay.
Right? In many ways, you find that because of that microcosm of so many different people coming together, it has actually built in our party also a certain set of ethics, standards, and opened opportunities up for all kinds of young, promising people. Look, I have a focus group, and to sit with them is to see the beauty of the NDC. Bright, sharp, very forward-looking young people. You'll be surprised at things they come up with. Look, each time I have an interview, any conversation, an assignment, all I have to do is get the synopsis and put it on the platform.
Oh.
Within seconds, you'll be surprised the level of debates that will generate and the information that you'd get as you step out.
So you're a youth-focused group. You are an ever-evolving party.
Always evolving.
Your biggest opponents, the NPP, say they are the biggest. Who was it that said that during the campaign launch last week, Sunday? Said the biggest and best political party in on the entire continent. How does that sit?
Research doesn't support that assertion because research posits that the most recognized political party in Ghana is the NDC.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So there are concerns that the message from the NDC and the NPP seem to be towing the same line. For example, although you are yet to launch your campaign, manifesto this Saturday, the attention on women with the development of the Women Bank, the attention on youth with the investment or the 3 billion investment in the digital space to aid the youth, and also some other issues like aside the 24 economy, that is where you deviate from where the what the NPP intends to do. And so I've read articles about some political actors, sympathizers of the NPP, who say that you're copying their message and strategies. I know the issues are all the same. The things that Ghanaians need to propel our development agenda are the same. But how come we are seeing some similarities in the approach then? What's the explanation here?
You know, let me state very, very succinctly and without any fear of contradiction that what is it that we want as citizens? What are we talking about as Ghanaians? We're looking at the economy, we're looking at health, we're looking at social interventions, we're looking at road infrastructure, we're looking at affordable housing.
Yes.
So when it comes to our development or key development indices, certainly all political parties will be looking at them from pretty much the same perspective. The difference is in whether your proposals are credible, they are believable, they can be trusted, they can be relied on. That if you look at it within the whole spectrum, on whose side will believability be? And that one I'll say is an NDC. Because you see, why would our opponents go out there and launch a manifesto and there's nothing about the economy? The only reason the NPP won the election in 2016 was because they campaigned on a better economy.
Yeah, they did talk about some things that feed into the economy, like the tax
they spoke about.
Businesses.
No, I totally disagree.
Okay.
If you want to promote this argument further, go back to pre-2016.
Okay.
Look at the debates, look at the conversations, even the reason why then candidate Akufo-Addo nominated Dr. Bawumia.
The economic whiskey.
Anchored on that.
Okay.
Nothing more.
Okay.
So for me, really, the debate about what is in their manifesto and what is not, really is just that. Because at the end of the day, they should be telling us that in the 8 years they've been in office, this is what they promised, this is what they did. But to try the nitpicking and picking it, you can tell that they are navigating the waters very carefully. And of course, as I say every day, the NDC is the most innovative political party in Ghana. Look, we changed the face of campaigns in Ghana. When were manifestos such a big deal? We made it a big deal in 2008, if you remember. We had the Women's Manifesto, we had the Youth Manifesto, we had a thematic manifesto, and then suddenly it became the example. In the last few years, if you observe, we have literally repositioned our party. We are very driven on very, very, very positive energy for our young people. And you can see the whole array of very youthful people who are suddenly crisscrossing the length and breadth of Ghana, all working for the National Democratic Congress. Our party chairman today, General Seydou Nketia, is one of the most recognized faces on any political spectrum. Our flag bearer has almost become like an iconic figure. That grey hair of his is recognized anywhere.
Although some would disagree, this is what you say.
Oh, but it's also normal for people to disagree. But if we're talking about comparisons between us in the last 8 years and our opponents over the last 8 years, I think that if we're talking about the men and the women, we probably certainly have a lot more of them than they do. And of course, with us, it is since the days of Chachu Chikata and many others.
Okay.
The NDC has always had some of the best and brightest. And when you watch us now, you see them all over the place. You know, look, I think that Ghanaians have a very straightforward choice between experience, credibility, trustworthiness, and who genuinely means well for Ghana. And I call that patriotism. You understand? You know, in all the debates we've been having, and I'm happy that once more we've set the tone with Mr. Mahama's conversations with the media, that finally our opponent on the other side now wants to have a media engagement, actually on the very next day after our manifesto launch, just because they think that they are trying to crowd us out.
So why don't we put all this?
I pray that the media
Yeah.
will put them to strict proof.
Why don't we put both candidates, both flag bearers, on a parallel platform, ask the questions, give us the responses, the rebuttal? Why is the NDC not willing to debate the flag bearer of the NPP?
You know something? In 2008, when there was a debate, the NDC candidate won hands down.
Okay.
In 2012, when there was a debate, the NDC candidate won hands down.
Okay.
In 2016, when we were in
Right.
office, then candidate Akufo-Addo didn't want to debate. Indeed, he had his right-hand man at the time, his running mate, telling everybody why they would not be debating with John Mahama. If momentum is now on the side of John Mahama, why would he want to debate anybody whose message has fallen flat and now needs a way to revisit the conversation? I'm delighted that once more we have set the tone for just what democracy looks like and how it should be.
So in the interest of democracy, in all the years that you've won these debates, what really prevents or stops? What is the concern?
No concern whatsoever.
Is it because they refused to debate you a few years ago?
What is good for the goose is just as good for everybody else.
But
the
I think,
same reasons why they saw no need to debate in 2016 and in 2020. We have no need whatsoever to debate.
That sounds like a tit for tat sort of.
No. I hope you ask him when he meets you finally in a few days.
Right.
Yes.
And you say the NDC is youth focused. Yeah. The question of the ticket, John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, it doesn't really represent the youthful vibe or the youthful appeal that the NDC is preaching. The question of the age group of the people on the ticket. Is that a concern to the NDC? And how are you skewing your message from these two people who are on a certain, within a certain age bracket, and then the youthful population that we have now? Do you see a disconnect over there? Or are you even navigating this?
You know, let me put this very, very carefully, right? That the same people that you speak of, I mean, Mr. Mahama literally is just about 60 plus.
Yeah.
And so you take Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. You know, I always ask a question. I am no longer a youth. Many of our people aren't anyway.
Yeah.
But of course, when we all arrive on the scene, we're relatively very, very young. We've actually grown into our roles now. But I kid you not, there are so many young people who will tell you the reasons why they join the NDC will be for all the other reasons other than the fact that we are so youthful. That's first and foremost.
Okay.
The people we speak of who are on our tickets have children our ages, grandchildren younger than us. If there is any reason why our party has become so attractive, it is also in the history of John Mahama.
He was one time one of the youthful.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
so,
then you take Nana Jane, purely an academic, whose whole life has been with young people, educating, training them, and living with them. So beyond the ticket or beyond their biological ages, is that what is it that young people actually look out for? Young people gravitate towards people they can trust.
But they're speaking a different language now. The Gen Z say things, you know, and sometimes you have to take a step back before you understand what they're saying. The recent trend about being demure and all that.
I live with my Gen Z.
Okay.
My whole concept of demure was completely different from what they say it is.
Yes.
Great.
Right.
But I love what I see on the scene in America. That we see Coach Tim Walz and we see lawyer Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Age similarly. But what do you see? Young people can now hope again.
Okay.
I think that is what all of us want. But the best part is that in that combination is that there is always a mix of all types of generations.
True.
When you marry them all, you get a synergy that is positive, that is refreshing, that is accepting to everybody. I think that that is the synergy that all of us are seeking to achieve. In any case, if you talk about the age of the ticket, I mean, then candidate Akufo-Addo wasn't so young himself.
Okay.
Then running mates wasn't so young himself. And it's the same. So I think that if it's about youthfulness, the UN says youth is 18 to 35. Then on that score,
none of you are youth
exactly.
anymore. Okay. One of the pending issues that I think most Ghanaians care about that may or may not influence voter choice, but it's important to us, the Ghanaian family values and proper family values bill, the anti-LGBTQ bill. We've heard the flag bearer of the NPP say emphatically that he is against the practice. However, he hasn't hasn't categorically said that he will sign. It was recently that the Minister for Works and Housing, Kojo Ponkrumah, said on PM Express that he will sign it. But John Dramani Mahama, former President John Dramani Mahama, has not emphatically said what his intentions are on that, particular bill. Does he intend to sign it? Should he be given the mandate come December as the president? What is his plan for the anti-LGBTQ bill?
Right now, I think that as a country, first and foremost, we are grappling with enormous hardship, purely economic, driven by very, very reckless borrowing on the side of the persons in government. We are also grappling with very high inflation in terms of cost of living, food, and everything else you can think of. Petrol prices have hit the roof. The exchange rates are skyrocketing. Rents are excruciatingly high. Young people on our campuses paying huge sums of monies for rental. Unemployment is now one of the biggest security threats to our existence as we speak. When we shift focus to the other things that even the generation that you're seeking to lead probably are not even that interested in. I think that most of our leaders have spoken largely on the side of conservatism or the conservatives, because I'm sure we all heard Mr. Mahama say that he was a member of the Assemblies of God Church, that his church did not toe this line, and so like his church, this is where he stands on this matter.
Okay.
In terms of whether or not a leader would actually, give vent or sign the bill in its present form, I don't want to make it the center of a conversation, because I believe that those who were promoters of that bill actually said it was a private member's bill. I'm sure they have their reasons. I heard the Supreme Court has actually ruled on the matter recently, and so all of us will be bound by that ruling. But I think that when it comes to personal views on the matter, all of our leaders have actually made their positions very, very clear, and I don't want to...
Is he against it or is he for it?
I think that if you Google, you'll see his position on it. And
he's against it.
He spoke succinctly about where he stands on the matter. I don't want to reiterate it. I don't want to reinvent it. I don't want to try and put any more words beyond what he stated, but I don't want to make the subject of our conversation.
No, not at all.
The bill,
but I mean, it was important enough that there was
yes.
live broadcast of the proceedings in court and all that. So people are actually following and are interested.
Well,
like I said, it may or may not influence.
My boss has stated categorically what his position is, and I stand there with him.
So he's against the
I will not add anything more. Like I said,
Okay.
I know just when my answer is complete.
So this is you doing it to me. Okay, thank you.
Very subtly.
Let's talk about 24-hour economy.
Yeah.
Do we have the infrastructure in place? Do we have the systems in place? Do we even have the facility, the jobs, the institutions in place to run a 24-hour economy? And from my understanding of what this 24-hour economy means is, for example, if you have one institution, one factory, you have about 3 batches of people who can come in and work. So you're making the job, you're earning more, or speeding up the processes, giving more people opportunities to work and earn something. Do we have the systems in place, and how do you actually intend to turn this policy, this idea, into a reality?
You see, if we speak about creating opportunities, improving growth, about driving exports more than imports, right? About changing the face of the economy, we have tried everything for the last 20 years.
Okay.
So far, none of them have been a panacea to the challenge of youth unemployment.
Okay.
As a young person, I remember the trade fair used to be a huge employer. It was very attractive to many students in the tertiary institutions at the time, in our day. I remember GCNet. It was a huge attraction for many people like us in that era. Then you come and talk about busy internet and all the internet cafes that were dotted across the country. They were huge magnets for youth to gain employment and access to decent salaries.
Yeah.
Mr. Mahama has actually been proclaiming one thing since his days as president: to change the face of our economy, to fully industrialize, to improve on exports and cut back on imports. If you push demand, by all means, there will be a need for more hands. If you invest that big push agenda to drive industrialization, naturally, productivity will go up. Once you increase productivity, there's a need for what? More hands to do the job. But there's one thing government has never done, which is to show commitment to supporting the private sector in this drive. By way of what? Giving them tax breaks. Why, Ghana's infrastructure sector, the private real estate sector, it was never what it was until recently. What was the reason? They introduced 5-year tax breaks. And suddenly everybody was happy to invest in housing. Once there is demand and you provide the service, people will bite into it.
People will supply.
Naturally. So what is it that the AGI complains about? High tariffs for electricity. Naturally, if we are paying so high for fuel, of course, to power any of these industries costs a lot of money. If government can come into a partnership with them that allows us to offer this time of use electricity at lower tariffs, the AGI told us.
So what do you say
to stay open?
What do you say to critics who say if it could have been done? He's been president before. What stopped him from doing it? What stopped him from beginning the process to turn our economy into a 24-hour economy?
I think that the whole concept of a homegrown solution was brought home to us by no mean a person than our failed finance minister, Mr. Ofori-Atta. Because when Mr. Mahama was in office, if you remember, he was very big on homegrown solutions to wean us off the Bretton Woods institutions, to industrialize in a way that we can change the face of the economy. So his largest or biggest preoccupation was how to improve Ghana's infrastructure, to bridge the gap between the deficit and what the expectations were. Most of the projects he embarked on were largely to do what? Create better opportunities for citizens of Ghana, to improve industries so that at least everybody can have a decent job. You see, the worst kind of employment we have is a question of underemployment.
Yes.
By the time I became a deputy minister, I was head of my department, part of management, and hoping to become probably a CEO or a chief of staff in my chosen career.
Okay.
How many people who came after us over the last 10 years can have a similar conversation? By the time that they were 40, they had a career spanning 20 years. Or by the time they were 50, they had been working for nearly 30 years. Not many people now can say that to you and I.
Okay.
And so this is a conversation that is at the basis of everything that Mr. Mahama speaks about. And you see, my sister, when you invest in the private sector in a way that makes a difference, businesses respond to enabling environments. Okay. When you talk about investment, why? We had AGWA. Why did AGWA fail? It failed because capacity was a problem.
You said former president wanted to turn the economy around with industrialization, all the examples. So what was the challenge?
He didn't have any challenges.
But he was in power for a
The
while.
biggest challenge we had in office was the question of power outages that nobody had any control over. That it was not Mr. Mahama coming into our homes and switching the power off. That under former President Akufo, we had a similar challenge. We had our pastors praying at Akosombo.
But we did experience the worst.
But it was not a personal fault.
Okay.
Climate change and rain patterns were not our fault. A few days ago, you heard about a challenge about rain patterns that farms were suffering, especially across the northern and Brown Harbour regions.
Yeah.
Why is Mr. Mahama not blaming President Akufo-Addo for the wrong patterns of rain or the climate change that is affecting him? Because we are not making these things partisan conversations. You see, there's a good reason why John Mahama remains one of the most attractive individuals around this space. It's because he is a very middle-minded person. So fair-minded that Mr. Mahama knows, for example, that presidents don't come into our homes and that the president will never wish for power outages to cripple industries.
But I guess the reason he earned so many enemies or critics
Largely.
is because of the attitude to the challenges that we were facing. And there's a comment about dead goats,
but
these
of those
utterances.
things you see, now we know about disinformation and fake news.
True.
When Mr. Mahama spoke about the dead goat syndrome, what was the context? He had been so criticized that he had actually even assumed this posture where the criticism alone was no longer enough.
Okay.
What he believed was that he would do everything in his power to them so.
Hopefully come December, if he wins, he can actually implement these policies because, I mean, not from a personal opinion, it looks like it's a good way to employ more people and give, work for the millions of youth in this country.
If we have better economic management in place, if we reduce excessive borrowing, reckless spending. I asked a question a few days ago. This government has expended $58 million on a national cathedral that is non-existent.
The world's biggest hole.
If you gave $2 million each to each region we have in Ghana, that is 16 regions, that is $32 million, you will have change. If we cut back on sweetheart deals, and you see, I ask myself, where are all the voices of criticism that were raining cats and dogs prior to 2016? They didn't hear about the president's daughter receiving a contract worth millions of dollars.
We do talk about it. It's the reason it's in the media.
Really? The whole time I've been sitting here with you, I haven't heard you ask anything about corruption.
Right.
And the fact that one of the biggest reasons why we are where we are is because of corruption. The type of corruption we see now was never present in Mr. Mahama's day. In fact, we're doing better even at the fight. We've had 2 special prosecutors. How have they fared in the fight against corruption? You've seen the Afrobarometer report. It gets worse every day. And what did the president tell us? That the whole thing about Senate, the debate,
was unnecessary. So then let me ask the question. We've seen former President John Dramani Mahama. We've seen Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as a vice president. The question of why should we even vote for either of these people? And then the role of the EC Electoral Commission in all of this. day 2, as we are having this conversation, for the voter exhibition, register exhibition, and most of the centers have just under 10 people turning up to verify their details ahead of December elections. So it gives you the sense that Ghanaians are tired of the NDC, NPP, this one comes to power and does some, and the next person comes to power and then he or she is the biggest critic because I'm not the one in power now. Do you think Ghanaians are ready to go to the polls again and vote?
You know, let me say that very, very sadly, and I believe Mr. Mahama put this very, very succinctly a few days ago, that there's a lot of apathy now, and very little confidence in our democracy. And that emerging as winner in the next election will also require that we fix our democratic processes in a way that will restore confidence in the process of democracy. Most of the Gen Zs did not experience Ghana in any days of the revolution.
Yes.
They've only ever known the certainty of this Fourth Republic. But when you talk to them, there are some who even remember their parents in their conversations about revolutions and military rule. It is not an example we want to emulate. But you look around you on the continent, and there's been a few of them re-emerging.
Our neighbors, actually.
Exactly. So it is something that all of us must guard very jealously. But you see, the biggest apathy has largely been the last 8 years under President Akufo-Addo and of course Dr. Bawumia. It is why I know for a fact that the more inclusive NDC should be given an opportunity. Because once more we are trying something that a big and successful political party has never tried before. Picking an accomplished woman as a running mate on our ticket for 2024. I think that fills me with enormous hope. It fills me with enormous anticipation. Because you look at Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, look at her credentials. She's lived here all her life. You've seen her campaign so far. It is driven by mostly young people. And so I am very hopeful that change must by all means happen. But this time around, it is actually change that should actually be for Ghanaians really to stand up firmly to work so that our democracy would actually be restored. And I invite every fair-minded citizen of Ghana that this attempt to win the election on the ticket of the NDC is not about anybody in the NDC. It's actually about all of us, citizens of Ghana. We all now know that Dumsor was not anybody's personal, reason for wanting anybody to live in Dumsor. That the cost to the state was even bigger than the cost even to the individuals who lost out. But you see, it was weaponized and became a tool for partisan politics. And so a lot of us literally struggled even to come to terms with the fact that this required deep thinking, deep investment, and it even required a complete overhaul of our process of electricity supply.
And
so
couldn't he have done anything better than he did, how he handled it?
Then came car power ships and Ameri. But you were told that these were things that were only coming to benefit to Mr. Mahama. Okay. In the aftermath, when Ameri became a property and a reason for celebration, Mr. Mahama was no longer in the picture.
Yes, you're talking about it being moved to Kumasi and all that.
And, and the agreement renewed and extended. So we should be careful that we don't try to take partisan lessons and see them as moral lessons. I think sometimes that is something that we also have to try and literally break apart in a way that people can better appreciate the issues.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that Bui has ever contributed anything to our power supply? The chiefs are actually today clamoring that the land be returned to them.
Okay.
The independent power producers, their Tuapo gas intervention is why today, once we can afford to pay for the gas, the lights are on.
And for
a larger parts of is credit that ought to go to those who help Mr. Mahama to think through this process, not those who weaponize it for political gain.
Let's move on and wrap up. How confident are you in the integrity of the Electoral Commission to deliver a free and fair election this December?
You see, like everything else that is associated with the New Patriotic Party, They've weaponized the EC too.
They've weaponized the EC.
Weaponized the EC, blackmailed the EC, manipulated the EC. I am sure that I am not Madame Jean Mensa, but I'm sure that Madame Jean Mensa herself now probably is almost even, maybe completely no longer even in as much control as we'll expect.
And you're inferring this from?
From all the partisans that are currently working under her. So where is the objectivity of the EC? You see, once Charlotte Osei faced all those attacks, that actually set the tone for her removal. It damaged the EC in so many ways that maybe you and I will not even see the effects now until much, much later. That they are appointing all these partisans into the EC has largely made it even worse. And you've seen the reports from research, not from the NDC or from Joyce, that people's trust in the EC is at the lowest in the history of this country. And that is a fact.
So does it help them?
And look at even the work of the EC since we've been in this space. How does that inspire confidence in anybody who has any interest in the work of the EC?
Help me put a figure to it. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level?
Oh, I would say that I have no confidence whatsoever.
But you need it.
Well, I am hoping...
Going into elections this December.
I am hoping that they themselves know. You see, their own reputations are at stake. Their competence is at stake. Their love for Mother Ghana is at stake. The highest stakes going into this election are all the responsibility of the Electoral Commission. So if they have a register that they themselves have not taken seriously, in 2020, for example, they announced election results 3 times. Imagine that this was another country. Imagine that Ghana had another type of leader on the other side. What do you think would have happened in 2020? We are seeing very similar things. So many mistakes. Why should that happen? They are very well resourced. They tell us that they don't need any help. So what is going on? Even to exhibit a voter register, how many days did it take? It took enormous special. Imagine that the NDC had not returned even to IPAC. Maybe then the EC would have shut down completely. So I wouldn't give you a mark, but just like every other well-meaning or fair-minded Ghanaian, confidence in the EC is very, very low.
What would it take? And that's my final bit on the politics, and there we go. What would it take to restore your confidence back in the EC? Is it the demands that the NDC is making, or those 6 demands that the chairman is asking for before they sign the Peace Pact? Implementation of the Ayawaso West Wogon investigation, or all the other?
I think that that's exactly what our chairman is trying to say. And like I said, the entire country will be dependent on the Electoral Commission of Ghana to save our democracy. I hope that they understand the exigency of the day, that they appreciate the challenges, that they also understand that democracy, nascent as our democracy is, everybody expects Ghana to show the way.
Let's step down from the politics now. And my final question would be, how do you balance being such an excellent stalwart, political actor, and spokesperson for a campaign team, one of the biggest political parties in the country, being a family woman? I'm sure you have friendships, you have, family responsibilities as well. How do you balance it all?
You know, I think that my ability to balance is also born out of the family in which I was raised.
Okay.
I have been juggling literally all my life. Through studying, through being a good or excellent student, through being a great advocate. But you see, in all that you do, your family and the balance you achieve with your immediate family actually propels you to all the heights that all of you get to see. So like my public image, I have a fantastic family life. I have amazing children. My eldest is 17. He's just finished his A-levels. Did fantastic at the exams. He was a former school prefect of his school. He's going into college soon. My next set are multiples. They are nearly 4. They're great. My mother is 84, she's still with us. The one person I would have wished had seen all of us today would have been my dad, but unfortunately he's been late for the last 26 years. But I'm sure that wherever he is, his spirit still lives with us and is proud of all that all of us are doing. So for me, really, balancing work, family and everything is a mark of excellence that I try every day to achieve. And I wish that on every other person who finds themselves in a career space, in a political space, in a work space, who wants to make it look. You see, the reason why I think that women struggle is that we struggle to find the balance. We have to learn how to achieve the balance. You know, fortunately for me, I always work in these very male-dominated environments.
Fortunately for you.
Fortunately, because I am a tough cookie myself.
Yeah.
So no matter how tough the environment, I will find a way to succeed. And I think that is what all of us should strive to do. Build a good family, build a great relationship, have a great job. You know, you were asking about whether I still practice. You know, even though I'm attached to a fantastic law firm, I find that my innings and outings are so far and in between that I try as much as possible to put court practice on the back burner. But you know, I am a fantastic advocate any day.
When I get in trouble, I know who to call now.
And every minute, I'm offering legal advice.
Okay.
The only challenge is that I have to learn how to do what? To charge people for the advices and the services.
Oh.
Because most people offer and come and ask because they know that,
it's for free.
Joyce will do it and not ask you for anything. So I need to learn to, because my partner complains all the time, and I think I need to learn how to at least ask for some fees for the service that you render. But all in all, I thank God that I'm the example that I am, that I'm such a healthy example of all that all of us females want to achieve. And I think I look at people like Nana Jane, and the fact that a man like John Mahama will give this opportunity to her and to someone like me and all the other females who work day and night in our space. I pray that we will improve our numbers in Parliament. And that
the affirmative action bill's been passed.
Well, it will not affect this current cycle of the elections, but hopefully. Because don't forget, the NPP has 20, we have 20. So none of us have done as well as we expect.
True.
But at least we have taken a fantastic step, a phenomenal step, that we want to make a female Vice President of Ghana. Let's see how that one plays out for us in the women's lib.
I like how you did that, for us in the women's lib. Thank you so much, Madam Joyce Bawah Mogtari. It's been insightful, and I've learned so much from you to be disciplined, learn when to pull the brakes, because it's very important that you don't do anything and now come and be retracting or apologizing for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
So there you have it, women, power and politics. I hope that now you know who Madam Joyce Bawah Mogtari is, how she stays afloat amidst all these wonderful roles and responsibilities that she has. And we will see you again next week, hopefully with another phenomenal woman. My name is Sweetie Abochi. It's always a pleasure to spend the time with you. Thank you for watching.
I congratulate you and commend you on your bold initiative to improve the lives of the women